All right, welcome back. Let's go. B6P Podcast, Metro Preview. Our hosts, myself, Alex, Tyler, and Trevor. Let's get into it. No new news on Tkachuk yet. We'll see. Trevor, no update yet.
News.
We got some Toronto Maple Leafs news, though.
Oh, is there actually?
Ilya Mikheyev
Yes, there is.
has a broken
Oh,
finger.
yeah.
Will be out 2 months minimum. And
I know.
Brooks, who was placed on waivers last night, was picked up today by none other than your favorite team, the Montreal Canadiens.
No way.
Yes, sir.
No.
He is a Canadian.
Why? I loved Adam Brooks. He was so good. I don't know why they didn't put him in the lineup. He was playing so well in preseason. Like, why? That's actually heartbreaking. Okay. Mikheyev, I was already upset about. I did hear about that, and I was already upset because he was expected to play like higher in the lineup this year. He actually requested to be traded. The Leafs were like, "Fuck you, no, we're keeping you," and they rewarded him by putting him in a higher role. Now he has this injury, so other guys got to fill in the lineup, which I'm confident the Leafs will be fine. But I thought Brooks would have been the guy to do it, and now he's a fucking Canadian.
Yep.
That's.
Yep.
You know what? Trevor's happy
You're gonna
about
be
that.
fine.
At least he got to sting me a little since I got him with the Tkachuk thing. You guys get to keep Tkachuk probably at the end of the day.
Yeah.
Fucking Brooks, though.
I mean, I wouldn't mind if Kyle Turris was picked up. Anybody want him, Montreal? You interested?
God,
like, come on. Someone take Turris for fuck's sakes.
I mean, yeah,
Wait, you
Brooks
don't
wasn't
wanna
a
let
stud,
your team
but
Apparently, Turris actually.
that's so upsetting.
I didn't watch many Oilers games this preseason, but apparently Turris didn't actually look half bad. So hopefully he finds his old ways.
Well, or at least does better than he's done in the past couple of years, I guess, right?
Well, they got him on the fourth line, so it's not like he can really get any worse.
Is there any good Leafs news at least? Anything good from you guys? Anything good?
Austin Matthews probably won't play this week, so there's that too.
Well, that's not good.
You don't need to keep digging us grave
Yeah,
here.
that's not like what the hell. Like, come on. I guess I should expect that with the Leafs too. Just of course, there's always something going wrong. Now there's just multiple things going wrong. I shouldn't even be surprised.
I guess it's better.
That's just the typical shit we go
Better it
through.
happens now than right before playoffs.
I guess, but still, I'm gonna miss Brooks, man. Hopefully, Mikheyev gets better soon. But I mean, Matthews when he comes back, he's gonna fucking light it up. So I'm not too worried about him. But it would have been like I thought he was gonna be back opening night. I guess we gotta wait a few more games.
Yeah.
Well, one other guy that you might miss is a guy that has gone to a team in our Metro, which we'll talk about the Carolina Hurricanes, who have picked up Freddie Anderson. So they've kind of gone a little different this year with Anderson and Ranta as their tandem of sorts.
I think
but
that their goaltending moves were fucking stupid this year.
Getting rid of
I think-
Nedeljkovic was the dumbest thing they did this
It
offseason.
made no sense at all. It was the stupidest thing. You're paying more for fucking Anderson, and the guy's he barely played for us last year. When he did, he was not good because he was just constantly injured. Like, I respect Anderson for what he provided for many years, but
And like,
I think it's the right time to move on.
I don't understand what they're doing. They spent all these years developing Nedeljkovic, and he shows up last year, has a great rookie season, and then they're all of a sudden like, all right, thanks for your time. We don't need you anymore. We're going to bring in this old guy that hasn't been good lately.
Yeah, hasn't been good literally the last year. And even if you look at his stats the year before, he wasn't that great. Like, that was one of kind of like the end of the Anderson reign in Toronto kind of started to end. And that's why Jack Campbell ended up taking over, because he was just, either he was just injured that entire time, constantly injured, or he just started his decline. But he was not good for us basically the last 2 seasons. Like, he played some. He was basically our Cam Talbot, I guess. Like, we overplayed him a lot. Like, he was our main go-to guy, and it wore him down, I think. But the last couple seasons, he was not great. He was not great at all. So I'm kind of happy the Leafs have moved on. I think Mrazek looks good, so I'm excited for that. But I think that maybe Anderson's going to be back to his normal form, but I think that's actually the weakest part of Carolina's roster is their goaltending.
Yeah,
I think it made no sense what they did with it.
Anderson is pretty much the exact same as Mrazek. They both have very similar numbers over the last 2 years, so they didn't upgrade Mrazek at all. They just added another Mrazek. And
Yeah,
then,
which I'm going to argue that he's probably going to be even worse than Mrazek this year. Like, I think Mrazek's going to be better in Toronto than, assuming he stays healthy, I guess, than Freddie would have been.
but other than their goaltending depth, their forwards are looking pretty solid still. Like
They're pretty stacked.
They have a very strong top six, and even their bottom
Yeah,
six.
Trocheck. I forgot
still
they got
pretty good.
Trocheck.
Defenseman.
Oh yeah, and they got Habs legend Kotkaniemi.
Yeah, which, oh my god, that was dumb. 6.1 million for him. Like, whew. All right then.
Yeah, you can see why Montreal didn't match that. They're just like, yeah, I'm good.
Yeah. Yeah, not their best idea. Like, he's their third highest paid player. Kotkaniemi is.
And he's like set to play on their third line, at least in
Yeah,
our
he's the third highest paid
projections
guy
here.
on the roster.
He better have a base. Like, I feel like it's expected now. He has to have a fucking amazing season.
But even if he doesn't, I mean, it's only 1 year. You wasted $6 million that you probably could have brought someone else in. I don't know.
And a couple picks.
I don't know. Like, they say it wasn't bitterness about the whole Aho thing, but I think there was some bitterness in that one, and in my opinion, definitely backfired on them because now they've got a bottom six forward making $6.1 million, but still is very young. Could definitely turn it around this season and have a good year. So that's definitely one thing to watch in Carolina, is if that $6 million was well spent or
Yeah.
if they fucked that one up.
And just looking at their D, does Gardner still, like, is he actually in the lineup?
Gardner's
or is he
out.
on IR?
Gardner's done for the season. He had,
That's what I'm saying.
Okay.
Like, he's
Yeah.
I'm just looking at him. Like, I'm pretty sure he's like his back's fucked. or
I think
something
he had
like that.
hip and back surgery, so I think he's he's done for the season. Yeah, we'll have
Yeah.
hip
Well, they
back
did add-
surgeries.
They did add D'Angelo Smith and Barrow, and Ian Cole as well, so they've certainly
Oh, yeah,
added on
true.
the defense.
Oilers
Like, even
legend
though-
Ethan Bear.
I'm still very, very sad about that. I like Foegele, but I loved Bear. Bear was, other than McDavid and Draisaitl and Nuge, Bear was my favorite Oiler. I love that.
I thought Bear was going to be one of your like main D going forward, but maybe they thought Bouchard was a better fit for that need, and that's why they made that move. But I think he's going to be pretty good on Carolina. D'Angelo, I still think, is a garbage human being, and I wish him the worst, so I hope that he sucks. But
Yeah.
I mean, it's Carolina. He'll probably do well. And I guess he's only at $1 million, so they got him cheap, I guess. But hopefully, like, really the downside is he going to be a toxic cancer to that locker room like
Yeah.
he has been on every other team he's been on?
Nuts. I'd say their forward group is looking great, and their defense and goaltending could be a question mark for them. So, and
Yeah,
That's
I think
a fair assessment.
their first pair looks pretty solid.
yeah,
But underneath that, it's kind of like each guy can be mixed between the two pairs, I feel like.
like as much as like you said, D'Angelo's a garbage human being. He has had really good seasons before in the NHL. so
That's the
could
thing.
be a
He could
huge
be a
piece.
top 4D for them. Bear, I could see being top 4.
But I'd love like Ryan Reeves to grab a hold of him and just beat the piss out of him one game. That'd be cool to see.
Well, he's in the same
Well, there's
division
4
as New
chances
York.
at it, so
Yeah, they have that. They'll have lots of chances to do.
Make
so.
it happen, Reeves. Beat him up. Imagine
Probably,
that.
maybe.
They could end up having D'Angelo and Bear being partners. Like a racist guy and a native playing together. Like how the
God.
fuck is that going to work out?
That's the thing. They got to make that work quickly.
Yeah.
But that's true, though. I could see Reeves beating the shit out of him because, I mean, D'Angelo was literally he was on the Rangers and they basically kicked him off the team. So I could see the first game, the team just being like, "Let's fuck this guy up. Let's fucking wreck this guy."
I don't know. Do you think Reeves beats up D'Angelo first, or he beats up PK Subban first? Who do you think he goes for first? Because I'm pretty sure he wants fucking Subban bad after what happened.
What does he
the
want
other night.
Subban for?
You didn't see him.
I think it's
He slew-footed Reeves, and Reeves is out now. Fucked his leg up real good.
Oh, really?
Oh yeah.
No, I didn't see that.
Yeah.
I Thanksgiving, man. I was busy.
No, this was last week. Kreider
Oh,
went
last
after
week.
Subban and everything, and Subban wouldn't drop the gloves. Like, there's going to be some bad blood between New Jersey and the Rangers right now.
Damn, eh? Rivalry already started.
Yeah, and you got to add in the Washington Rangers. So it looks like the Rangers has got a lot of rivalries going on so far. The season hasn't even started.
Yeah, exactly. Carolina and New Jersey already on their radar. And they always got you always have to have the classic Islanders Rangers rivalry.
And then they got
too.
Washington. So they got 4 guys.
They got enemies in this
They
division.
got
that's
4
for sure.
enemies in this division.
I mean, it makes sense. They're basically fighting over that like at least one of those playoff spots, and those are all teams that are going to be in the running to get one. So, I mean, maybe outside of New Jersey, but all the other teams are probably going to be competing pretty heavily for a playoff spot. So they're going to have to be beating the shit out of these other teams, I guess.
Yeah.
Well, a team that you wouldn't consider their enemy, maybe, let's see, the Columbus Blue Jackets, where,
Another irrelevant team
oh
this year.
man, they didn't.
This is this division's Buffalo Sabres.
But you've got Voracek, Corrali, and Bean and Boakfist, most significant ones coming in, but then you're losing Atkinson and Del Zotto, and it's like, you look at their lineup, it's not terrible, but at the same time, it's not great.
Oh,
That's
and
just
former Kitchener Ranger Ryan McKinnis signing in Buffalo. It looks like
indeed.
he's going to suffer there. He played for the Kitchener Rangers a little while ago. It was when the Rangers sucked, though. I just remember when I went, and he was like basically their best player when I watched. I was like, man, this team sucks.
They got that.
At least this guy's good.
What's his name? Cole Sillinger. I'm pretty sure is gonna end up making this team, if I correct with him being the name. Yeah,
Yo, you got him.
I've been I don't know. I have a lot of Columbus guys on Facebook, not like players, but like people that follow Columbus, and they've been really impressed with him as well as that Chinnikov, whatever it is.
Chinnikov, yeah.
Chinnikov, Igor Chinnikov. I think he could step in and be a pretty. So I think those two guys could be not key pieces, but they're gonna help with the offense. I think a little bit. And then it all comes down to that top line of Line A, Roslovic, and Voracek. Like Voracek, I think is a good player. I've always liked Voracek. He's had a few down years. Didn't really agree with them trading Atkinson for him. I think Atkinson was the better player right now, but that's why I'm not a GM.
Yeah, that seemed weird to me because I thought Atkinson to me felt like a pretty prominent roster player for Columbus, and he had been there for a while, like kind of like more of like one of their longtime leaders in the room.
Yeah.
So I guess maybe they really wanted to shake it up. I don't know, but that
It's
was
like
kind of
Voracek was even theirs earlier. It's like he was a Columbus Blue Jacket
Yeah.
earlier in his career. So it's like they brought him back, but then you're losing essentially one of your longest tenured guys. It's like
Yeah, it's like I guess
Oh.
you really wanted to give him. Maybe they liked him back then and they didn't want to give him up. I don't know. Like he's still a good player. Like I think he'll be
But
fine.
I
Like
think
he does fit that role. But
I think the one thing though about Voracek over Atkinson is Voracek definitely brings more toughness than Atkinson.
yeah,
Voracek's a big body, and he plays that Philly style of hockey.
and you have him slated to play with Roslovic, which is a younger centerman. So I mean, maybe that's the intent of like have some kind of veteran winger on the line with Line and Roslovic.
well,
That
it's
can
like you look
kinda-
at their lines. It's like anyone in their top 9 essentially is like you can probably flip off rounds. Like they're all kind of at the same level. Almost.
Yeah, like it's gonna be a lot of trial and error, I think, for Columbus this year. I think they're gonna try out a lot of line combinations. You're gonna see guys in and out of the lineup. You're gonna see guys moving up and down. I think they're forward. I would definitely say their top 6 is not set. Like you can see any of those guys moving out of it, I would say.
Yeah.
And I think it's going to be very early and often for them trying new line combinations.
And I mean, just looking at their defense too, like really the only guy that I know that's going to be prominent in that lineup is Werenski, but everyone else is another name that could bounce up and down. I mean, I think Boquist is one of their younger prospect D, so he should be filling in a bigger role, but everyone else there looks like kind of younger, more like they're trying to find a spot in the lineup or trying to figure out where they fit.
And I would say goaltending wise, I would say they've got a decent tandem in Merzlikins and Korpisalo. It's not. I would say probably middle of the pack in the NHL for goaltending tandem. Like I would say
it's solid.
Probably.
I think I wouldn't be surprised if Merzlikins had a big year though, because that one, what was that 10D of theirs that passed away?
Not Kiflenix, was it? I think it was Kiflenix, maybe Matis Kiflenix.
Yeah, and it was like he basically saved Merzlikins and his family, I guess. Like,
yeah,
sacrificing himself.
Kiflenix. Yeah.
So
died
I could see him maybe just having a better year than expected, just maybe with some motivation because of that, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. It's like, honestly, you could probably see. I think that, like, with the tandem that they have, it's like, I don't know if they'd really, like, if they're going for like a rebuild of sorts, they might want to move one of them out. Maybe Korpisalo being the more likely of the two, being with Merzlikins' connection to the team with what's all going on now. But
yeah, I mean, I think what they're gonna do is they're gonna try to see where they measure up in the league. I mean, I don't think that they're making the playoffs considering the division they're in.
No, I don't think they're making the playoffs either.
I think they're going to like test it out, see where they're at, and then see what pieces kind of like prepare for that deadline moves where they're just going to unload all those guys.
They won't be like Buffalo and Arizona bad, but I don't think they're going to push for a playoff spot.
No, that's the thing. I think that they'll surprise some games where it's like, oh shit, like Laine got fucking a hat trick and Nyquist picked up a goal. Like I think there's going to be those nights where they come out in the surprise and they'll have Merzlikins playing pretty good hockey that will hold them in some games. But I wouldn't expect them to really be a standout team in the Metro. But I think they'll be interesting.
Yeah,
yeah,
they'll be an interesting team to follow for sure.
Yeah.
Moving on to the New Jersey Devils. They've made some. I don't know, they've made some decent upgrades, like signing Dougie Hamilton was huge.
Yep.
Thomas Tatar, I still don't understand why Montreal never played him in the playoffs. I'm pretty confident that Thomas Tatar is still a very good hockey player.
I thought he was like a fan favorite because I remember the whole like Tatar thing that was going on, like the big fandom. Like anytime he scored, they just went nuts. And like I even had buddies that were like in love with the player and like always did the Tatar thing, and I'm like, okay, like this guy seems like a prominent top 6 guy. He scores a lot, fans like him, and then he just all of a sudden cut out of the lineup. It's like, what the fuck happened?
Yeah, I never really understood that decision. Like he's still only 30. I would have loved Edmonton to have signed him, but they didn't have the cap room to.
Yeah, that's the thing. Like he's a good player. I think that's a good pickup. Yeah. Hamilton, even Graves is a decent like depth defenseman for their team, or I guess it looks like you have him on the second pair. I don't know about that, but like what happened to Severson? I thought he was like a pretty solid D for him, but we got him pretty low in the lineup here. I guess he's kind of leaned down a little in the past couple seasons.
Yeah, it's just like I was seeing lines like throughout the majority of last year. It's like he was always like second, third fiddle, and it's like you're having Hamilton come in. It's like he's going to be fighting for minutes. It's like they haven't really lost anyone either. It's like they lost Bastion to the draft, and then Murray maybe their most significant, I guess. But it's like this line was more or less the same. It's just all right. We've got these young guys. Let's build them up. Trevor,
I have to ask, who is Sharangovich? If I'm saying that correctly,
Igor Sharangovich is actually a guy that was kind of going fairly well with New Jersey last year. I was like, I do see him being a top line guy for him, but yeah, he kind of
like did he come out? He must have came out of nowhere because I'm just looking at the name. I'm like, who the hell is this guy? He's in the first line too. Like shit, this must have had a good season last year.
5th round draft pick in 2018. He had 30 points in 54 games last season with the New Jersey Devils. So
not bad,
pretty solid,
considering the New Jersey Devils sucked. Yeah, that's pretty good actually. Okay.
He kind of came up at the last part of the I think he was more of a second half type player, but it's like with the way he was playing, I don't see why not throw him at least top 6, if not first line.
Yeah, I mean, look at all the other guys around it. It's not like you have anyone else to throw in one of those roles. Just looking at their depth, like I am liking how they have like Hashir. I actually completely forgot about. I think because he got injured at some point last year. I'm not exactly sure.
Well, that's
or he's constantly injured or not, or kind of jumping back in and out of the lineup. But I forgot to get him. But yeah, that's a pretty decent center. He was, I think, going to take a step forward this year.
It's pretty crazy. They got Jesper Bratt and Jesper Bogfist in their lineup. Pretty cool. Doesn't really pertain to anything,
same name.
But it's just cool that they have the same name.
Even Zaka, it seems like he hasn't hit his potential either, because I think he was a 5th overall pick one of the years that they drafted.
I think it was a high pick, but I don't know if he was that high. I'll have to check here.
Maybe not, but I thought he was in the top 5.
No, he's not top 5, but he was 6th the 1 year.
Okay.
So
it's like, yeah, so he was a pretty... I mean, that's still pretty early. I thought he would have been more of at least a top 6 forward, but it seems like he hasn't hit that plateau yet.
Yeah. I got Blackwood and Bernier net, and it's like, Bernier just brings us back to the whole Nedeljkovic trade. It's like, you acquire him, but then you just don't sign him, and then now you just let him go to a division rival. So
yeah, it's just like, you could have kept him as even a third goalie, like a third string.
No. I don't know. They've got a lot of question marks here. I think the forward group is going to be very questionable. They got a lot of young guys.
I don't think New Jersey's making it. Just looking at this roster, I think they got some work to do here.
They're
considering the rest of the Metro, they're not up to snuff yet.
But they're in a good place right now. They've got a pretty solid defensive core, and it's always huge having a good defensive core. Blackwood's a pretty decent goalie. He had a down year last year, but he's also playing for the New Jersey Devils, who haven't exactly been powerhouses.
Yeah. That's the thing. They're building. You can see that they're building here, and they're progressing.
They're making the right moves. Is what can be said here. They're definitely making the right moves to be a better team.
Exactly. And the Hamilton signing, you can't really go wrong with that. I actually would have preferred Hamilton over Seth Jones, so I think they got the better of the two at the end of the day. Yeah. When they signed, so I don't think they're going to complain about that at all. I think he's going to be pretty fucking good for him.
I'd say it's still an interesting team to watch. I think they're going to... I don't think they'll push for a playoff spot, but I think they'll be a lot better than a lot of people are thinking they're going to be.
Yeah, they're going to surprise some teams, I think. Because I think, just looking at them, I'm kind of okay, they're probably in the bottom of the division, but they might, surprise and... I don't know, push around a couple teams, especially closer to the end of the playoffs. This might be a team that decides who ends up getting a wild card spot or not, just with those final games, right?
Yeah.
They might have that ability to, if they beat a team at the end of the year, maybe it doesn't help them make the playoffs, but maybe you knock out the Rangers, because fuck you, New York Rangers, we don't want you going to the playoffs, right? Maybe rivalry reasons, they just beat a spoiler team.
Yeah.
We'll get into another New York team. We won't go to the Rangers just yet. We'll go to the Islanders, where they've got the same lineup essentially. They
literally made no changes, pretty much. Yeah, except for getting Chara and Parise.
Losing Eberle is huge. He was a very good player for them. I love Eberle. I fucking hated when Edmonton got rid of him. Absolutely hated it. Cannot believe.
Yeah, and that's the thing. He's good in the playoffs.
He is very good in the playoffs. He was great for the Islanders last year there.
That's the thing. He's a known playoff performer. He's not he still puts up good regular season totals, but it's I feel like he steps it up a notch when he gets to the playoff time.
Yeah, last year in the playoffs, he had 11 points in 19 games. The year before that, he had 14 points in 22 games.
Yeah, so that's pretty solid, especially for a second line forward. That's exactly what you'd want from him in the playoffs.
Exactly.
But I guess it looks like they're swapping him with Parise essentially, which. Maybe this will be a resurgent year for Parise. I'm not 100% confident about that, but the roster in general, there's been they keep making it to the conference finals each year, and there's so many times I'm just how? Like their roster doesn't look like insanely impressive. It looks like a solid NHL team, but it doesn't look like standout like Tampa or something like that, where they got all this fucking crazy players on.
Here's where I say what sets their forwards apart. Like, yeah, they've got like Barzal, Lee, and Palmieri. That's a good top line. But if you look down at their bottom six, they got Martin, Tzidikis, Panik, Wallstrom, Peugeot, and Beauvillier. Like, that's one of the better bottom six teams in the NHL. I would say those six.
That
guys.
is true, yeah.
And that's what you need in the playoffs. Like, you need two solid top lines, but you also need your third and fourth line going, and that's where it separates them from other teams, is they have those.
They're pretty
third
much
and
like
fourth
the
line.
most well-rounded team in the league.
They are. Like, you look back at their defense with Pelech, Pollock, Chara, Dobson, Green, and Mayfield. Like, that's a strong six defensemen. Like, that is good.
Yeah, there's monsters on that blue
And then you
line.
got Varlamov and Sorokin. Like, they're like, I would agree with Alex. One of the more well-rounded teams in the NHL, and I think that's why they'll push for the top of the division this year.
Yeah, that's a thing. It's like I don't see any reason not to expect the exact same results that they've achieved the past couple years. If anything, they're really trying to make that push forward to make that Stanley Cup final and push for the cup, and I think they're getting close.
Yeah, like they didn't
So
really.
it's like, why not take?
They didn't make any major upgrades, and they didn't really lose any major pieces. So they're pretty much the same team as last year.
Yeah, stay the course. You might as well. Yeah. Like, fuck, what reason to change when you're literally right there in the top four of the league, basically.
Yeah, exactly. And
but also fuck the Islanders. Fuck off with that Tavares shit.
Yeah.
Like, you've had enough success without him. I think you can leave us Leaf fans alone. We've suffered enough.
And it also helps they got Barry Trotz behind the bench.
Yeah, that's the thing.
bench,
Trotz
yeah.
is an amazing
He's
coach.
one of the best coaches in the NHL. He's a great fucking coach. So I would definitely have them top of the division for sure.
Yeah, I think they're guaranteed playoffs. I think with this division, though, it's really like there's a few teams that can get first. Like, it's almost like the Atlantic, where like the top four is going to be anyone can land anywhere, really.
Yeah, I would say this one. I would say Metropolitan will probably be the closest division for the top
it's going to be
5
so
or
tight.
6 teams. Like, there's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 teams that I could say could push for a playoff spot.
Yeah, it's literally New Jersey and Columbus are the only two teams in this division that are in question.
Yeah.
Everyone else is like a potential playoff contender, essentially.
All right, moving on to the other New York team, because there's so many fucking New York teams in the league. We got the New York Rangers, who, not sure why they did this, but Buchnevich, not sure why exactly they traded him. I thought he was going to be a big part.
Because they wanted Goudreau. They liked Goudreau, and they wanted Goudreau, so they got Goudreau and got rid of Buchnevich.
No, they traded for Sammy.
They still
Blais.
brought in Sammy Blais, which is terrible, but yeah, that was a bit of a question mark
Yeah,
there.
it's not. Yeah, that would say is their big loss would be Buchnevich, but you never know. Sammy Blais, still young kid.
Because that's the thing. The cap that Buchnevich commanded was the exact same as Goudreau, so it was like you got to pick one or the other.
Yeah,
I guess what their cap situation.
I guess bringing Goudreau is pretty good because he's got Stanley Cup experience.
I mean, back-to-back Stanley Cups,
Yeah.
like that's some pretty good experience to bring in. The only thing is, I've never seen Goudreau as a top 6 player, which is like,
No, like he had.
oh, well, we got him on the third line here,
Yeah.
but I mean, still, he's making so much money for a guy playing on the third line.
Yeah, he had 20 points last year in 55 games. Like, the most he's
Yeah,
ever
it's
had
like-
is 24 points in 62 games. So I just...
That's basically like what my thinking is. It's like you got rid of Buchnevich, who can play like on your first or second line,
Yeah.
for a guy that you're going to put on your third line, and they're paying him like what, $5 or $6 million a year, something like that. It seems like a pretty huge cap hit, but I guess they're just riding that Stanley Cup high of like, all right, maybe this guy is going to give us what we need, right? Which I guess we'll see. I mean, it looks like we have him lined on a line with Lafreniere, which might be positive for Lafreniere just to get that boost, because I know I think he started doing better at the end of last year's season, but
Yeah, it took him a while to get his feet from under him, but it's like I don't think his point numbers weren't what everyone was expecting of him with all the hype around him, but it still wasn't a bad.
No, he's an
season,
18-year-old kid
quote-unquote.
coming into the NHL.
Yeah,
So,
he's
I mean-
playing on one. I guess the New York Rangers are the biggest franchise in the NHL. So
And
it's
he was
like,
playing third line essentially all year, so it's like he wasn't getting as much deployment as others might have gotten.
Yeah, like
yeah,
he had 21 points in 56 games, which isn't awful.
that's
but-
respectable for playing on the third
Yeah,
line.
it's
I think
respectable for an 18-year-old kid too.
exactly. I mean, fuck, being 18, getting that, like even scoring a goal. Like if I entered the league and like I played an 82 game season, for God's sakes, if I scored even one goal, I'd be like, fuck yes, I scored an NHL goal.
Well,
Like that would be enough for me.
and another thing is, look at how many 18-year-old kids have actually stepped into the league. Like, if you look at like
It's so
big name
rare.
players, like Draisaitl wasn't in the league at 18. Like a lot of guys like that were in the league at 18. They developed in the minors for a bit. So for him to step onto a team that competed for a playoff spot last year. And
Well, I mean, look at Tyler Seguin. I think the first year he played, he was playing like fourth line for Boston.
Yeah.
Ended up winning a cup, and now he's the best player on the Dallas Stars. Like,
exactly. So for anybody writing off Lafreniere already, you're a fucking clown, and you should never watch hockey again.
even Kako, I think he's going to take another step this year. I think he's going to be hitting more of that stride because, I mean, he was pretty hyped up too, but I mean, in his first year wasn't the most spectacular one either. But again, it's like I think he just needed to get used to the NHL speeds in the game, and
Plus
I think him and Laff are going to be decent this year.
he's an absolute unit now. Buddy put on mad muscle over the season. Like he's a big boy now, so I think that's gonna really help.
That
him.
might change his game, right?
Yeah.
Like that's the thing. It might have just been was just getting knocked off the puck too easy because. To me, he seemed like a player that likes to carry it. Like, he likes to carry the puck. He likes to kind of drive the play. And not having that ability in the NHL, that's going to pretty much change up your whole style of game. So, I guess getting the more size, hopefully that helps him maintain that puck control longer.
But they're gonna need guys like Blais, Kaku, Lafreniere, definitely to take a step forward this year. Like Panarin, Zibanejad, like Kreider. As much as I fucking hate Kreider, they're pretty good hockey players. Their defense is well rounded with Miller, Fox, Lindgren, Trouba, Haddock, and Nemeth, and then they've got a pretty decent tandem in Shesterkin and
Shesterkin and
Georgiev.
Georgiev.
Like, I would definitely say
Yeah.
that's another solid tandem in the NHL. Definitely in the top half of the league.
Plus, they just locked up former Sens legend Michael Zibanejad for like a nice juicy 8 years. So he's fucking locked in on that first line pretty much, and I'm guessing that means that they're out of the whole Eichel sweepstakes because I heard that they were trying to grab him.
Yeah, I don't know.
I don't know if you'd necessarily count them out just
Yeah.
yet, but
I guess, but yeah, with the cap situation, I don't know who you move because then you'd have Panarin and Zibanejad basically taking 20 mil, and then you had another 10 in Eichel. I mean, I guess the Leafs are doing it. Why not fucking the Rangers? But
Well, I'm reading right now, and I don't. Obviously, these are just rumors, but it says Ducks and Flames are leading candidates to acquire Jack Eichel, which I don't like either.
Flames make sense because if they're planning on changing around their core from like Monahan and Goudreau, I could see one of those guys being a part of that deal.
They have to. I like.
Because I'm assuming they would keep the Chuck. There's no way you're trading Matthew
No,
Tkachuk,
Matthew
right?
Tkachuk is going to be your next
He
captain.
has to be their next captain.
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly.
And
it has to be the next
so
captain.
I honestly could see Goudreau being the odd man out. I think he would be the one that gets moved.
Yeah, so that's the thing. It makes sense. They have a piece that they can move that would be a big building block that Buffalo could start building around at least.
Yeah.
And if you include a first in that, I mean, I could see it. I could see it happening. I guess it will depend too on the whole surgery thing. If they actually let Eichel get the surgery, maybe the team negotiates it like, okay, we'll give you such and such. But I don't know. I don't know how it's going to work. It seems so confusing, that whole situation.
if we get moving along here, we've got the Philadelphia Flyers, who they have done quite a bit.
They did a lot of
It's like
tinkering
the
this
guy
offseason.
They got a
These are
lot
the guys
better.
they brought in.
They pretty much changed like a big chunk of their decor. Like they swapped out a lot there.
Yeah. Brought in Atkinson, brought in Ellis, brought in Risto, brought in Yandel, and then brought in Jones as a backup. It's like, you're not going to have him start. It's just like, he could still be serviceable. I was like,
I think he would be a respectable backup. He's definitely not a starter, though.
The only
Not with the numbers he's put up in the past years, no.
The only big name they really lost was Voracek, but he brought in Atkinson, who, other than...
And Nolan Patrick, I guess, too.
I don't think Patrick really ever...
He just kind of fell out of favor.
Yeah, I don't think...
That's like, because he had the migraine issue for the longest time, it just kind of derailed him, unfortunately.
Yeah, which...
Well, that's the thing. I think Nolan Patrick still will be good in the NHL. I think he's going to succeed in Vegas' system.
I really hope he does. I like Nolan Patrick, and just sucks that he got concussion problems early, and then, like Trevor said, the migraine issue really derailed a lot of his career. But
I mean, and from what who's Vegas' goalie?
Leonard.
Leonard. With the things that Leonard came out with, it sounds like the whole Nolan Patrick situation. He didn't specifically mention him, but it sounded like Nolan Patrick was just mistreated health-wise there. Like they kept wanting to play, even disregarding his health issues, and it just kept building and building, right? So what I'm thinking, just seeing that, is it didn't work out in Philadelphia because Philadelphia kind of pushed him a little too hard to make it work, and Vegas, I think, is going to be a little more respectable with his health, and especially since they made the trade that they did. I think that they're going to take their time with him and make sure he's like ready, and they're going to kind of pay attention to his needs a little more, which is why I'm kind of thinking he'll see more success in Vegas, just because I think that there's more responsible management, somewhat. I mean, obviously they just trade players willy-nilly when they did the Pietrangelo signing, but I think that when it comes to their health, they're still going to be more professional about it.
Yeah. I would say the biggest thing that's going to hold this team back from being good is Carter Hart. If he takes another step back, I can see it being a struggle for them. But if he plays like everybody knows he can, because he's a really good fucking goalie. Like, I've always been a huge fan of him. When he backstopped Canada, like, he was absolutely lights out in that tournament.
I thought he was going to be the next Carey Price.
That's what I was thinking too.
Honest,
but at the end of the day, he's still only 23, and how many goalies had 3 seasons in the NHL already at 23 years old? Doesn't happen very often. So he's still very young, and he can still find that Carey Price mentality, and I believe he's going to be a top goalie in this league for a very long time. But that's my biggest question mark, is if he can find his game again this year. If not, then I think it could be a long year for Philly fans, because
it's basically up to him to carry them.
Yeah, like that offense,
because they do have a decent looking roster here, but they don't have they don't have a McDavid or a Draisaitl or like a Matthews or a Crosby or somebody to really carry that front end load.
You got a decent top 6 with Van Riemsdyk, Giroux, Atkinson, Konechny, Couturier, and Lindholm.
That's pretty solid.
But that number 1 line of JVR, Giroux, and Atkinson would probably be a number 2 line on most good teams in the league. So
exactly, yeah,
they're like a borderline.
That's the thing. It's a pretty well-rounded roster, almost like the Islanders, but they do have the advantage of Hart, which could be like a basically their superstar of the team.
Like, their defense is much better. Provorov, Ellis, Yandel, Ristolainen, Sanheim, and Braun. Like, that's a good.
That's a solid D line.
Core D. So that's good to have. But again, if Hart's not going or Jones isn't going, it could be a long year for Philly.
I mean, that defense might be what gets Hart going again too. Like, since they tinkered so much with it, which I think that was the intent. I think they were like, we're literally changing this decor up completely just to try to get Hart going. I think that was the whole plan with all those moves.
Yeah. And if we go across the state a couple hours, we go to the Pittsburgh Penguins, who they've pretty much stayed rather the same. They've added Brock McGinn and Danton Hyman, so a couple new guys in, but only lost of significance Tanev, McCann, and Ceci. So it's like they're essentially rolling out pretty similar to what they were last year.
But
Yeah, and you know Pittsburgh's going to make the playoffs. You know Crosby's going to ensure they make it.
Well,
When Crosby's out, Malkin's going to be an absolute beast. Like it's going to be the typical Pittsburgh formula.
I'm pretty sure they're both out right now, though.
Yeah, because Malkin's going to be out for the first 2 months guaranteed,
Ooh.
and Crosby might it was 6 weeks ago. Like it was like 6 weeks ago. It was like it was going to be 6 weeks. So it's like he might miss like say a week or two off the start of the year. It's not as significant, but it's like the other thing with this team is like they're starting to age a little bit too, and it's like look at their D.
Yeah.
And it's like
Their window's definitely closing.
Yeah.
They got to be trying to make they got to make these last couple runs, these last few years count. I think if they want to kind of capitalize on like the final Crosby Malkin years. I guess Letang too. So yeah, their core is aging. I think they're like they're 33 or 34 now.
Malkin, I believe, is 35, and Letang and Crosby are 34. So they've only got 4 or 5 years left with these guys.
Yeah, and it's like how many of those years are going to be productive enough to drag them to the playoffs? I mean, I guess I never really want to say Crosby and Malkin are ever going to decline, but I guess with age, we'll have to see if that happens. But yeah, that's the thing. They got to be thinking themselves like maybe they can push like for the next 3 years, but once it gets to those last couple seasons, like closer to 40, they might be the tank might be getting low by that point.
Yeah, I'm not sold on this roster. Looking at this roster right now, it's very, very spotty. Could be.
Yeah.
I mean, but you
I don't
never
think you
know
count
with
them out.
Crosby because Crosby makes everyone around him so
It's
much
Crosby.
better. Same with
That's the
Malkin.
thing.
Malkin does the same thing. So if those two can get going, then they can definitely bring his team to the playoffs. But my realistic guess is they're probably fighting for a wild card spot.
Yeah, well, especially with the start of the season missing Crosby and Malkin. Like, I think really what's going to dictate their success is going to be their performance in the last half of the year.
Yeah, like
And, like, hoping that they don't have injuries at that
they're
point.
already behind the 8 ball with those two guys out off the start.
Essentially, yeah. It already feels like they kind of have a bit more ground they're going to have to catch up on in the season just because of those. So, but it's Crosby and Malkin. You know when they get back, they're probably going to still make that push. So I feel like wild card is safe. It's a safe bet for them. They're like likely to make it, but there might be an odd chance that they get knocked out.
Yeah.
I still don't think Crosby will allow that though.
No.
I think he'll make sure that the Pittsburgh Penguins sneak in.
Yeah. All right.
But are they going to win the cup when they get there?
Doubtful.
I don't know about that.
All right, let's move on to the last team, the Washington Capitals. Another Rangers rival.
And they pretty much stayed the fucking exact same too.
Yeah.
They literally did nothing. Like they lost Chara and Dylan. It looks like picked up Matt Irwin, which, I mean, he was on Buffalo. I don't know how good he's going to be because Buffalo sucks ass. So it's like, okay, you got a guy, cool. I guess
He's not terrible, I'd say. That's like, but as mentioned before, it's like this roster's the same. You're likely seeing them in playoffs, most likely than not. It's like,
yeah, they'll probably make it. They're pretty solid. Like I just looking at their front end, I think Backstrom's injured though, and Ovechkin, but Ovechkin might be coming back soonish.
yeah, because so Ovi's day to day or week to week with that lower body injury in this out. I'm not 100% sure how long Backstrom's going to be out for, but that's like, I don't think it's as significant of injuries time wise to the likes of Crosby and Malkin, but we'll have to wait and see on that.
Yeah, but that's the thing. They're another team that's kind of starting a bit behind the 8 ball too, where there's a bit of work to do, but they might get it a little easier just with what they have going on. But I mean, even the rest of the lineup, like Mantha, Kuznetsov, Oshie, like I like Lars Eller, Hagelin, I like Dowd is pretty good. McMichael, maybe he takes a more prominent role in the lineup. Their defense is like the only thing that's kind of a little off for me. Like Carlson and Orlov seem fine. Schultz, he's all right. But I guess it'll depend on Samsonov as well on how they do there. But there's a couple spots too, like kind of like with Pittsburgh, where I could see them, like they might want to improve a bit more on the blue line here, just to kind of like shore that up, just because it's looking a little weaker.
Yeah. That's like they brought back Vanacek. It's like you lose an expansion. Oh, we still want him. Let's just give him a third-round pick to see how just get him back.
Oh,
That was the weirdest thing.
he had
but-
good numbers last year. He was 21, 10, and 4, 908 save percentage, and a 269 goals against average. So like not terrible numbers for a young guy. He's 25,
Yeah.
and they got Samsonov who's 24 and Vanacek who's 25. So that's going to be their major thing is if those two can play like their numbers show. If they have good years, it's a very strong.
It's a
tandem
decent
to have.
tandem, I think.
Yeah.
And Samsonov, I'm pretty sure, is like can play pretty solid. I think last year it was just a little affected because he kept getting in trouble for like COVID protocol stuff, and I think he even did get COVID. But yeah, he had a bit of a weird year just because he kept getting kicked out or suspended for his shenanigans going on. So maybe this year will be a little better now. I guess assuming he follows COVID protocols.
Yeah. So I would say they're probably a playoff team, but it'll probably be the same as Pittsburgh. Could see them, kind of flopping, but at the same time, I don't see Washington missing the playoffs.
And with that, why don't we discuss where we think each team is going to fit?
I think it's unanimous for us that Columbus is 8th.
Yeah.
In this division.
I got Columbus.
It's Columbus. Columbus is 8.
Yeah, and then easily
7?
New Jersey at 7. I'm saying
Yeah,
New Jersey.
I got
That's
New
probably
Jersey
unanimous
7.
too.
New Jersey stays at 7 for us all. 6 is going to be Pittsburgh for me because I just, as far as aging, man, I don't see them keeping the magic.
And
You know what?
For me here, I would say 4, 5, and 6 are very interchangeable. I would say Pittsburgh. Yeah, I would agree. Say Pittsburgh 6, but they could very well be 4 or 5 in my eyes.
Yeah, because I'm. It's hard because I'm thinking Carolina's actually going to be a little lower than expected just because of their goaltending situation. You know what? I'll just say my 4, 5, and 6 right now because they're going to be interchangeable essentially, which will be Pittsburgh. Say we'll put Pittsburgh 6th. I'm going to say Carolina 5th.
Really?
And then Philly 4th.
See,
And those are my 3 interchangeable.
Okay.
teams.
I got Pittsburgh 6, Philly 5, and then probably Washington 4.
We are certainly not on the same board with
We were
our
saying this is going to be the
interchangeable-
hardest division, man.
Yeah,
Like,
this
we
could
knew it was
really
gonna
go
be
Yeah,
the
anyway
tightest.
so-
with these teams.
Beings have already mentioned Pittsburgh at 6. I've got Rangers at 5, Carolina at 4. Leading us into number 3, I'm taking the Islanders at 3.
I got
See, and I'm actually taking the Rangers at 3.
I got the Rangers at 3 as well. And then I
Okay.
got Carolina at 2, and then I have Islanders winning the division.
I have Washington at 2 and Islanders winning the division.
I've got the Washington at 2, but I'm giving Philly the division.
Philly.
Interesting.
Wow.
It's like they've got a solid lineup as long as Hart can bounce back, which I certainly believe he can. It's like that top 9 is fairly solid. Your top 6 D man are still fairly solid. I'm giving it's gonna be a tight battle, but
Yeah.
I'm gonna give the slight edge to Philly.
That's like for me. That's why I put Philly in 4th because I'm like I think they'll make it, but I think they're going to snag the wild card just because I'm feeling a little more confident about the Rangers.
I'm
that
on it.
spot.
In all honesty, though, any one of those 6 teams could be anywhere in that 6. Like it's
Yeah,
gonna be
literally.
I would say this is the hardest division to predict. I would say those 6 teams, any one of them can win the division, and any one of them can finish 6th.
It's like I could see Carolina in playoffs, but I think Boston would be too high on my list compared to the Rangers, so I'd have the Rangers slightly out. But
I would say the only team that I have as an actual lock in this division as a playoff team is the Islanders.
which is
And
fair.
then the other 2 can be really any of the other 5 teams.
Yeah, That's the thing. Like, I feel like Washington will make it just because it's Washington. I feel like they could, but who knows? Like, I feel like it's the Islanders and Capitals that are my two locks, and then everybody else, like, out of the other five or four teams. Yeah, the other four teams. It's kind of like a mix between like Pittsburgh, Philly, Rangers, and Carolina if they make it. But
And then that wild card battle is gonna be ridiculous. There's gonna be six teams in the East fighting for a wild card spot.
That's the thing. Between the two divisions, it's gonna be a bloodbath.
Like, it really. There's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. There's 11 teams that I see as playoff teams in these two divisions.
Like, literally, literally every game is gonna matter. Like, hopefully teams have that mentality right from the beginning that, like, those 2 points you're picking up in the first few games, in the first few weeks, those are gonna be massive come the end of the season when it's deciding where you're like ending up.
Like, the only teams
teams figure that out.
The only teams in the East I don't really see competing for a playoff spot, and like even one of the teams I have in this list could, and that's Ottawa. Like, no, like, I'm sorry, Trevor, they're not there yet, but
no offense taken.
They also were starting to surprise a lot of teams. Like, they were one of the better teams in the North when the season ended last year. So I could see them pushing, but the East is just so strong, and I see Detroit, Ottawa, Buffalo, Columbus, and New Jersey as the 5 teams that probably won't push for a playoff spot. But then the other 11 teams, it's going to be a battle to see who wins those wild cards.
Yeah. And I think that, like, injuries, too, and things like that might determine it sooner than later for some teams. Like, that's the thing for Pittsburgh. I guess, again, you can't count them out, but it's going to be the last half of the season that will really dictate. But they're going to just try to hopefully struggle along and get whatever points they can, scrape by, just to get them set up for that playoff race in the last half of the season. Like, I think for a lot of teams, there's going to be some interesting challenges coming up. I mean, even for the Leafs, we already have prominent injuries, and we lost a good player off waivers. So I'm like, shit, our start of our season's already going a little rough, so hopefully they can salvage something in this first month and move on and go from there.
Well, with that, let's go to what we teased in our last episode, which brings some fun parts to the podcast.
Yeah.
Let's take
the way too early prediction.
Yeah.
Way too early prediction Stanley Cup final. That's like, just for a fun pick. It's like, it might not necessarily happen, but what do you guys think would be a fun Stanley Cup final?
So, like, just like, this is what we don't actually think is going to happen, but would love. Is that what you guys are saying?
Yeah.
Okay.
This is just like for the fun of it. Who would you want?
Okay. So my ideal Stanley Cup scenario, and this is just me being an Oilers fan, but I think the greatest thing I could ever witness as an Oilers fan, because I couldn't watch Edmonton Calgary play for the finals, would have to be McDavid versus Crosby for 7 games. I think, as an Oilers fan, I think that would be my greatest Stanley Cup championship, watching those two guys battle for a Stanley Cup. Now, I don't think that's actually going to happen. I think both teams are still far away from a Stanley Cup, but would love to see Crosby and McDavid go at it for a championship. Especially after winning gold a few months earlier together.
Oh God, I know that's the thing. That'd be fun just to see like those two generational talents go head to head.
Yeah, I would love that.
What you got there, Alex?
So for my two fun prediction, I'm going to say easily for the East Conference Leafs. Just to see the Leafs win a goddamn round would be a miracle of itself. But to see them in the Stanley Cup Finals would be like, oh my God, I waited my entire existence for this moment. Obviously, I'd want them to win. That's my fun prediction for who would win. And a nice clean sweep against who would be fun here? Who would be fun here? You know what? The Seattle Kraken.
Oh yeah,
clean sweep against the Seattle Kraken in the Stanley Cup Finals. Yeah, that's my little fun run, because everyone would be cheering for Seattle. Like everyone who isn't a Leafs fan would be cheering for Seattle because they're like the expansion team. Like it'd be the most conflicting Stanley Cup final to cheer for, right? Because it's like, who do you pick? The Toronto Maple Leafs that everyone laughs at and wants the cup drought to continue on for, or do you pick the team that literally just entered and is doing a Vegas Cinderella story run and they're going to win a cup in their first year. Who would you
Okay.
pick? Like, that'd be so hard for people.
But let's be honest, if Toronto ever made the playoffs, no matter who they're playing, every single human being other than Leafs fans are going to
That's
cheer
what
for
I'm
the
saying.
other team. Doesn't even matter. They're playing fucking Nashville or Minnesota or, you know, a team no one really cares about. They're still going to cheer for those guys over the Leafs because everyone loves watching the Leafs struggle. And if it were to continue, like, imagine losing Game 7 in the Stanley Cup Finals to Arizona or some shit like that. Like, wouldn't that just...
Oh, well, this is why I picked Seattle, because I thought it'd be the most conflicting team, because it'd make some fans go, okay, do I continue my, like, orgasmic hatred over the Leafs and watching them suffer? Or do I spite the team that just entered the league and wish ill upon them because they don't deserve a Stanley Cup because they've only been in the league? Like, I feel like that was the most conflicting series just for Toronto to participate in from the West.
Yeah.
But either, I feel like the same as you, Tyler. People will still look past it and say, fuck the Leafs, I want them to lose.
Pretty much. All right.
Quickly, I'll go Carolina because the bunch of jerks, and then Vancouver. It's like with how many they've done, the additions they've done. It's like have a Canadian team in the final because I unfortunately don't see all in the playoffs. But Carolina, Vancouver. But real quick, realistically, I got Islanders, Avalanche. You guys.
That's a good pick. That's a good pick. You want me to go? My realistic pick here? I'm going to say Tampa goes for the three-peat, and Colorado is going to spoil it in 7 games.
Okay.
Well, I got a shocker for you boys.
Oh God, no.
I'm actually the same as Alex. I got Colorado beating Tampa in the finals.
That would also just be that was also like one of my, like, that would just be a fun prediction, but it's realistic.
It
like,
is.
that could happen.
But
too.
I also can see Trevor's coming true, too. I can see the Islanders.
Yes.
I think...
I like how we're unanimous, though, that Colorado's all...
We all have Colorado winning it. Yeah.
I think the Islanders are the only team in the East that will put Tampa out. I think they're the only team that actually has a legitimate shot at beating Tampa Bay. Other than that,
that's the
I
thing. They're
don't
getting
see
close.
anybody, well-rounded enough to beat Tampa.
At least in the playoffs, it seems like they have... That's the thing. I mean, who knows? Maybe the Leafs are going to be like, hey, we're good now in the playoffs. And then they're going to be the one who knocks out Tampa round 1 or something crazy like that. That would be...
You can only hope.
That's my fun... That's how my fun prediction path works. They beat Tampa and Boston on their... Tampa, Boston, and Islanders on their route to the Cup, and then they take out Seattle from the clean sweep.
Yeah, I got it.
That's their...
Edmonton beating Calgary round 1. Edmonton beating Vancouver round 2. Edmonton beating Vegas in the conference finals. Then Edmonton beating Pittsburgh. That's my fun route. That would be like the best way.
So is Edmonton then
Edmonton.
a wild card team? Because you have 3 teams from Pacific, so unless you're saying Vegas is going to be the wild card in that scenario.
No, I got Vegas as 1, Edmonton 2, Calgary 3. And then Edmonton beats Calgary. Vancouver wins as their wild card team and plays at... No, because then Vegas... I don't know. It's fun, Trevor. You're making it confusing for me. It's not going to happen.
Fine, he ends up in a wild card spot, and they go on this miracle wild card run. I don't fucking know.
They finish as
However
the
it
8th
works out.
seed and beat everybody. All right, well, that's all the time we have for this week, folks. I hope you enjoyed our preseason, or I guess mid-season, or not mid-season, but beginning of the season predictions.
Early
and
season preview.
how we think the year is going to play out. And I hope you guys are all excited for this hockey year, because fuck I am, and I can't wait for the season to get going.
Oh yeah, I'm excited too, man. It's gonna be nice to finally get back into hockey again. I missed it, even though I had such a painful ending the last year. For some reason, I'm excited again for this year. So, thanks again for watching the Bottom 6 podcast. Like, subscribe, all that good shit, and we'll catch you next time.
Adios.